we're gonna do pizza burgers. So it's the best of both worlds. It's a pizza and it's a burger and it's all in one. It's gonna involve whole grains and some beans in it. So it's gonna be super tasty and actually nutritious. So I'm gonna get started super easy. This is a really great one for kids to do because it involves a lot of mashing. So first ingredient is gonna be bulgur. Now I pre-cooked this bulgur. Bulgur is a whole grain. It's really easy to cook because it takes about 10 minutes. And so this is what the grain looks like when it's raw. And so to get a cup of cooked bulgur, you do 1/3 a cup of raw bulgur. You do 2/3 a cup of water. So 1 part grain, 2 parts water. You bring it to a boil and then you turn it down to simmer and you cook it for about 10 minutes. So super easy. A lot of times what I'll do is with whole grains is I'll cook a bunch of it at the beginning of the week, refrigerate it, and then put it in things like this, put it in salads, put it even in sandwiches or wraps. So lots of ways to use whole grains. You could substitute other grains for this if you like. You could do quinoa, you could do brown rice, other grains. So cup of bulgur, I'm gonna put it in my bowl. Next thing is a can of beans. I like to use white beans, but again, this is flexible. You could use other beans as well, garbanzo beans, black beans, pinto beans. I'm gonna drain that. So I'm just gonna take that bean water off. You can rinse your beans as well. These ones don't have extra salt added, so I don't feel like I have to rinse them, but you certainly could. I'm gonna put my canned beans into my bowl here. Next, I'm gonna add in tomato paste. So it calls for 1/4 a cup of tomato paste. A really nice conversion to know is that 3 tablespoons equals 1/4 a cup. So I'm just gonna measure my 3 tablespoons of tomato paste there. Put that in. So this is gonna get some of our pizza flavor with our tomato paste. Put that in. Next, it calls for some spices. So it calls for some oregano. You could use fresh if you have it, but I'm gonna do the dried. So it's 1 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm gonna do 1. And then I'm gonna cheat and just use this to get 1/4. You certainly could be more exact if you want. This recipe doesn't matter so much if you're exact. And you could also add more or less depending on how much spice you like. Some fresh basil, or actually this is dry, but you could use fresh if you grow it or if you have it available. 1/2 teaspoon of that. So I'm gonna put in my 1/2 teaspoon of dried basil. If you're gonna do fresh, I would do a little bit more. So the dried, they have to take quite a bit of fresh to make the dried. So if you're using fresh, I'd probably use maybe a couple tablespoons of it. And then I'm also gonna put in my garlic powder. Calls for 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. You certainly could use fresh garlic as well. But one thing I love about this recipe is it is gonna come together in very short time. So this is gonna make it even quicker. So I'm gonna do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then I'm gonna do some breadcrumbs. I'm gonna use pre-made whole wheat breadcrumbs. I prefer the whole wheat because at least you're getting some fiber in there. You certainly could make your own breadcrumbs as well. So you basically toast the bread, really dry it out, and then chop it finely up. So it calls for 1/3 a cup of the breadcrumbs. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my breadcrumbs in there. So I'm just gonna put everything in there, and then all I'm gonna do is mash it up. I'm gonna put my salt. I like to do my own salt. You can add a lot more salt flavor with less of it when you grind your own. So it calls for 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that one in. That's about right. Calls for some pepper, 1/8 of a teaspoon. You could add more or less depending on how much of that peppery spice you like. I'm just gonna guesstimate that. And then you can either take a spoon or a masher. And I'm just gonna mash this together. So this is super fun. You could also use your hands for this and just get messy. But all we're gonna do is mash this all together. And this is gonna make our burger meatless burger. But this is gonna help mash the beans. You also could do this as a food processor if you like, but I feel like part of the fun is actually getting the mashing in. So I'm also getting my bicep workout here, my arm workout. So kind of fun way to smash it all together. You know it's done when basically the beans are pretty much all smashed in here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna form them into patties and we're gonna bake them. And then they're gonna turn out just like burgers. I'm gonna stir this together a little bit. Stir this together a little bit more with a spoon, and then I'm gonna mash just a little bit more, make sure all my ingredients are getting mixed in there. Like I said, you can definitely change this recipe up a little bit and add different beans or different grains more spices, less spices, change the spices up a little bit. You could certainly add some thyme or some marjoram or some other spices, depending on the flavors you like. And like I said, fresh garlic could be great, and also some fresh herbs would be great, especially in the summer or if you're growing herbs at home. Luckily in California, we can even grow herbs other seasons. So a couple more mashes, and then we're gonna be ready to make these into burger patties. Also, while you're mashing this, if you like your beans a little bit more intact, you can leave the beans a little bit, some of them whole. If you are not a big bean fan, you can smash them all the way in and you won't necessarily even know that beans are in this. So I like to have a little bit of the beans in there. So this is gonna serve 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and divide this up into 5 portions. However, I'm actually making this for a family with my family, with 2 kids and 2 adults. So I'm gonna make the kid-sized burgers a little bit smaller than the adult-sized burgers. And depending on the age, I usually say under about 10 years old, probably do a smaller size, starting 10 to adolescents and teenagers, definitely you wanna start doing more of the adult size. So I'm gonna go ahead and divide this up. I'm gonna make some of the bigger size patty. I'm just gonna make it into a patty, kind of make it as much like a burger as you can, kind of form it and flatten it. I'm just gonna put it right on my baking sheet, and all I'm gonna do is bake them. And they are amazing that they actually kind of crisp up when we bake them here. So I'm gonna bake it at a pretty high heat at 450. So you wanna make sure you preheat your oven ahead so that when you go to put them in, it's already hot and at the right temperature. That's gonna help make things brown right away. As opposed to if you put it in and it's not hot, it might start steaming the food a little bit, which isn't gonna get some of the nice crunchy brown edges. So I made 2 adult-sized ones. I'm gonna make the kid-sized ones a little bit smaller. A lot of times with this recipe, I also like to double it and make extra, and these actually freeze really well. So I bake them, and then when I maybe bake them a tiny bit less, I take them out, cool them, and then you freeze them. Either individually sized, or you could freeze, several of them together for your family. These can be great things to pop out for lunches, for school or for work, so that you can have a variety in your lunches that you can easily take with you. And if they're pre-made, all you have to do is pop them out. So I've got my burger patties there. You can see some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. I'm actually even gonna make this one smaller because I've got 2 kids, and then this will be an extra snack or lunch. So I'm gonna make that into even smaller ones. If you've got babies or young toddlers in your family, again, you can make the smaller sizes so everybody gets a burger and doesn't feel left out. I think the worst thing is to have half of a burger. So my kids are not a big fan of half. So we always try to make their own whole one so that they can have the right size but feel like they're still getting a whole one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put those in the oven. Like I said, I have a preheated oven at 450, and I'm gonna cook them for about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna cook the first for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna flip them over, and then you cook them for another approximately 10 minutes. But again, you have to adjust depending on your oven. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and flip these pizza burgers. You can see they're getting nice and brown, but they wanna get browned on the other side. So that was about 10 minutes in the oven. I'm gonna go ahead and flip those. I'm gonna put them back in the oven and cook them for another 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, last but not least, we're gonna assemble our pizza burgers. So I have my pizza burgers. They're baked and browned on both sides. And so now I'm gonna assemble. So I am using a whole wheat English muffin. You also could use a whole wheat hamburger bun. Again, as much as possible when you're having grains, I recommend doing whole grains. So again, looking at your labels, making sure you know what you're getting. So this is 100% whole grain English muffin. So I'm gonna take it, I split it in half. I'm gonna put a little bit of marinara sauce. Now the ultimate would be for you to make your own marinara sauce. And a lot of times in the summer when I have ripe tomatoes, I'll make a bunch of it and then freeze it. I just ran out of my summer supply from last summer, so I had to buy canned. So totally fine, even better to make your own. Bonus points if you make your own. So I'm just gonna spread a little bit on there. I'm gonna make 2 of them right now. So put a little bit on each half. I'm gonna top that with some cheese. Now for this one, I'm actually gonna use a vegan cheese, which I don't always use, but for some reason I really like it with this recipe. So it's a chow cheese, and it's actually a mozzarella type cheese. It's not mozzarella, but it is a creamy chow cheese. I'm gonna put 1 slice. You could also use a thin slice of mozzarella cheese. So I'm gonna put it on each one. I'm gonna top it with a burger. And then I'm gonna put the other side of this flat. And now I'm gonna roast this in the oven. It's gonna melt the cheese and then kind of put it together and it's gonna get all oozy. So we'll see the final results when it comes out. Okay, so our pizza burgers are done. So you can see the cheese is nice and melted. Got our pizza sauce, we're gonna put it together. And we've got a gooey pizza burger where that cheese is kind of starting to melt out a little bit. So there we go. Now, if you're gonna take this for a school lunch, what I say is just heat it up, toast it in the morning, wrap it in tin foil, and put it in your lunch, and it usually stays warm and can be a nice, tasty lunch.